David, thank you for inviting Brand Solidarity to gatecrash your summit. Today is actually, believe it or not, the 1 week anniversary of us speaking on the phone and you really kindly inviting us to put on an event to close the Brand Summit. Thank you. 9 days ago, there was no brand solidarity, let alone a website and its logo being featured by numerous brands across the globe. I just wish there wasn't the need. But tragically, the war in Ukraine is still raging, resulting in a huge amount of civilian casualties and the displacement of millions more. If we can show the Brand Solidarity website, please. Brand Solidarity is mobilizing brands throughout the world to demonstrate their support for the people of Ukraine in a simple but highly effective manner. They're doing that by featuring the Brand Solidarity logo on as much of their marketing material as possible. By featuring this logo, whether it be on advertising, websites and packaging, to profile pictures, emails and point of sale, the objective is to create a continuous and powerful stream of visual unity with Ukraine. This is resulting and will hopefully in the coming days result in a loud and relentless display of solidarity and contribute to the push for peace. Whether you're a Brit, Ukrainian, Russian citizen, oligarch or politician, or anywhere else in the world, you should see the message everywhere, loud and clear. The world is with Ukraine. The world wants peace. Members of a rapidly growing band of Brand Solidarity pioneering brands are present today. Thank you. And if you're not yet participating, please email your logo to Marcel at brandguru.org and we'll email you back together with activation guidelines. And if any companies or organizations that are here have brand contacts, whether they be in the UK or beyond, please encourage them, even cajole them to participate. If we can revert to the main slide, please. Beyond displaying the Brand Solidarity logo, we recognize that many brands are keen to express their support in the most effective way possible, and to do so in responsible fashion. So we've leveraged Brand Solidarity's connectivity with the marketing industry and are today, thanks to an impressive panel, offering guidance on techniques to follow and pitfalls to avoid in displaying support for Ukraine. A number of brand guardians have said that whilst they want to act for their brand in displaying support, they will do so, but they are also constrained by their corporate standpoint. So how do they best display their support? As individuals, when you're back at home, we'll be addressing that too. Due to the fact that we have to cover so much in under 45 minutes, I hope the panel members will forgive me for not delivering their impressive biographies that they have earned. Forgive me, just going to introduce them by name and title, but you can be assured they have one hell of a meaty and substantial biography. We're very lucky to have the panel members here, and I really appreciate you guys dropping everything to participate. And I also would like to thank each and every one of you in the audience for taking time out of your day to support brand solidarity. Thank you. So, without further ado, I'd like to invite our panel members onto the stage. They are Sophie Devonshire, author and CEO of the Marketing Society; Neville Hobson, social strategist, writer and podcaster; Marina Pesenti, who's actually member of the Ukrainian Institute's Supervisory Board. Thanks for taking time out of a really hectic and tough time to be with us. And Felix Henderson, co-founder of the Look After Group. Please welcome them onto the stage. And while they're walking onto the stage, I also would just like to thank Sharon and Tyrell. They've been volunteering their time and have just been so phenomenally helpful. Truly remarkable. Thank you, guys.
You should alternate, really. I'll sit in the middle.
So Marina, Neville, Sophie, and Felix, thanks so much. I'm going to come across and join you. And my first question is going to be whether each of you can summarize your 3 key pieces of advice to brands who best want to support Ukraine, obviously from a communications perspective. We can start with Felix.
Hi everyone, I'm co-founder of Look After Group, as Marcel's just said. We are a specialist ethical marketing consultancy, focusing on PR and brand. And so for the purposes of this answer, and to keep it short, I'll focus more on my niche, because there is a huge wealth of much larger corporate experience on this panel. But we tend to deal with brands that don't have so much a reputational problem in the sense that they're actively, operating within Russia or countries involved in this. We're actually working predominantly with brands who want to do something about it. There are so many things that I could say. This is such a broad topic, and to try and scratch the surface of what can a brand do to help in 30 minutes is a tough ask. But look, my 3 things in terms of, if I was advising a brand looking to do something here to help in the effort, support the people of Ukraine, it would be number 1, the most obvious thing. Whatever you do, do it with authenticity. Brands, whatever their size, have taken a long time to build a reputation, and that is destroyed in a second if what they do doesn't tie into the values and day-to-day operation of their business. And I suppose it'll be uniform across many of the recommendations here. The second, and this is probably more into the remit of the work we do, make sure it engages young people as well as the broader community. We're fighting a war that many have described as the TikTok war because of the level of information that's shared on social media. And your young people are the key to helping achieve the virality that can push your campaign from something that is a great idea and can be successful into one that really catches on and engages a much broader community. And I think the third thing to say for me would be do something that opens it up to your market, your industry. One brand alone can only make such an impact. A community and group of those can make a massive one. So engage a mechanism that invites other brands and businesses to get involved, to jump on board, to share, because the power of community in something like this is obviously so much stronger than doing something as an individual business or one person.
Thanks a lot, Felix. Sophie.
Thanks, Marcel. Afternoon, everybody. I think we should start with a belief that actually brands can make a difference and what we do matters. We're only 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks into this hideous war, and we're already seeing that brands are standing up for something, making a difference and talking about it. So I head up the Marketing Society. We're a global community of marketing leaders, and they tend to be people who want to make a difference in what they're doing and understand the power of brands and businesses to make a difference. So I guess my 3 things would be relatively simple. First of all, I think anybody who has a leadership role in business right now needs to be always ready to act with velocity, to move fast. If you look at what the different brands and businesses have done across the last 19 days or whatever it is, it's incredible how nimble some organisations have been. And also how it looks when other organisations have taken a little bit too much time to respond, and the hashtags that have trended, boycotting them, the impact of what's happening. So velocity is speed in a given direction. So if you start with a purpose and you know what you want to do within your organisation, it's easier to move fast and make things happen. So brands should always be able to do that, and we see those brands who've moved fast and made a difference already having an impact. Secondly, the golden rule of branding. Jeff Bezos always talks about brands are not what you say, but what you do. So deeds, not words, to channel the suffragettes from a long time ago. I think many of us were brought up in business to actually be a little bit sensitive about getting into politics or getting involved in it all. That's completely changed, of course, and we can see that now. And the number of organisations who are stepping up and making things happen and actually acting, as well as communicating what they're doing, that's what people are being judged on, that's what businesses are doing and getting the results. So there's some incredible examples of organisations doing things that are true to what kind of business they are. So 3 and BT and the networks who've actually stepped up and provided services, Elon Musk providing services, people who do things that are appropriate, as well as those who are giving money, who are giving support, who are doing things and making things happen, and doing it relatively fast as well. So acting with velocity, deeds not words. And then for me, the last thing is a reminder for all of us that together we can achieve so much more than alone. As Felix said, when we come together as a community, when competitors are coming together and helping each other and making a stand, the impact is so much bigger. When we as businesses, as marketeers, as people involved in brands come together with something like brand solidarity, we can make a difference and have a much greater impact so much faster, and we can help each other. So we can have conversations. So within the Marketing Society, we have marketing leaders who across the last couple of weeks have been having conversations where they've said, what do we do? How do we handle this? This is really difficult, and shared ideas and supported each other through, how they can help more. So those would be my 3 things. Let's move fast, make sure that we're not just saying things but delivering, and that together as a community, together as a world, we can really have an impact.
Magnificent, Neville.
Hi everyone, Neville Hobson. It's a topic I think that's quite complicated for most organizations. Exiting from a country like Russia, for instance, is not easy for some. And I suspect that's why a week or so back there was criticism of a number of organizations for being quiet, not saying anything. Probably lots going on behind the scenes to come to a decision as to what they're going to do. So not everyone can be like IKEA, for instance, who have shut down their operations, including the factories. I mean, the flat packs and so forth, a lot of that's made in Russia. 15,000 employees will lose their jobs, but they're going to continue paying salaries for at least 3 months. Not everyone can do that. But their rationale is crystal clear why they're doing it. And I guess I would summarize it by they say this is the right thing to do. So amongst the issues that organizations have to grapple with, to me is one simple question is, do you want to be on the wrong side of history when this is all over by staying in a country like Russia? So I think sooner or later, everyone's going to have to stop doing business in Russia, no matter what, even the pharma companies with the drugs. And there is a humongous ethical dilemma for them in that they are providing something that is part of the fabric of that society. And people will suffer. And you contrast that with what's happened in Ukraine. So this is not easy for many. I'm also thinking that this focus has so far been on large organizations with thousands of employees. What if you're a small brand, handful of employees perhaps? You've got a logo, you have opinions, and you might not be doing business in Russia. You may not have much connection with Ukraine, but you have strong views about what's happening. So what can you do? Lots, actually. And that, I suppose, comes to the heart of the questioning. What should people do? So the large enterprises we're seeing, there are 400 or more, if I get the latest numbers, of companies who've announced either the pullback or complete closure across all industries. Many of them American, the big tech companies, for instance, but a lot of them are European, fashion, technology, all these large organizations. Then you come to small businesses, and I was impressed by the CEO of Etsy making a statement. Etsy is the marketplace for small businesses to sell craft works and many, many other things, talking about the support they want to give to people who use Etsy at the same time as supporting the standing by Ukraine. And so that sort of conversation is happening, and that's the key word here. People are talking a lot about this. As an individual, I have very strong views on this, and I stand with Ukraine. I mention that hashtag a lot. I talk about this a lot myself on social networks, notably LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook to my friends. And I will continue doing that. And that's what each of us can do as individuals. But we can also do that for our organizations too, because not everything has to be at a huge scale. There are stories we need to tell that, in a sense, justify our belief in why we stand with Ukraine. And we need to continue talking about that without any compromise in that belief. So this situation is not getting any better, and to me I worry that if we don't do something soon with all of this, it'll be too late, because you've seen the pictures of Syria. That's what Mariupol looks like when I saw it on the TV news this morning. So to me, the final point I want to make on this too is that in spite of these things that I think each of us have to do as individuals and as employees or owners of businesses, to articulate this stand for Ukraine. For an organization with a brand and brand values that are very, very important, everything you do must align with your brand values. And you might say, that doesn't kind of gel with the authenticity element of this. Yes, it does, absolutely. You need to reinforce those values. But you've got to find a way of doing that that doesn't come across as some kind of lame PR effort for your brand. You've got to be authentic, as Felix mentioned. This is absolutely key. Social networks are perfect for this. This is what social media is like. The focus is social, not the media. Conversations, tell people what you believe. If you're an organization with huge networks of your own, with influencers out there, you engage them. You've got to do this. And finally, employees for large organizations. That is your army. That's your primary cohort to mobilize your employees to tell your story about why you stand by Ukraine.
Thank you, Neville. And small stories can make a big noise. I saw coming up on social media today a care organization. They've sent clowns who they normally have go around hospitals to entertain children. They've sent clowns to Moldova and other entry points to welcome children who are coming across the border, to make them feel much more relaxed, happy, and hopefully distract them from the atrocious scenario that's going on. And to see these clowns playing with the kids is one of the most moving visual narratives I've come across. Marina.
Thank you. I have to say, speaking last is a bit difficult because all major points have been covered, but I thought it would be useful for me as a Ukrainian and Ukrainian activist based in London just to share some personal experiences of the last 2.5 weeks. First of all, I'd like to say that there's a huge movement in the Ukrainian community. They are incredibly mobilized, and actually working with politicians and working with brands, with companies, is one of the things that we are trying to do. There's been lots of pickets and demos that take place, and some of them directly target brands and asking them to take a stance. Maybe we could bring up that slide that I prepared just to demonstrate. So these are the posters which were designed by some of the activists. As you can see, actually Unilever today, there was supposed to be a picket in front of their headquarters. I think it probably went ahead because it's one of the major brands which still hasn't left Russian market, and Turkish Airlines as well. So it's just to say that there's really a momentum in the community, and we are reaching well beyond Ukrainian community, trying to ask, to mobilize the brands and make this decision. And I fully agree with what's been said. It's not an easy business decision to some of the companies, but what we are trying to instill in the British public is a sentiment that actually we are already at war, and actually sacrificing some of the revenues of your business is probably a much smaller sacrifice to make rather than engaging in, kinetic warfare, as we can see in Ukraine. And also another word of support which goes for numerous Ukrainian brands and businesses which are now completely in disarray. Some of them had to, the members of staff had to leave, their business collapsing. So if there is a possibility of some of the British brands to support with providing services in kind, as has been mentioned, or support these business people in some other ways to support the lines of business somehow, that would be really invaluable. It's been mentioned that it's important to provide this connection between the management and what the employees think about it, because seeing such widespread support among the British public, sometimes executives might not even be aware that their employees feel so strongly on this issue. So this connection is really important. I suppose, and last thing that I would like to say is probably about the importance of language. So when we talk, let's bring peace to Ukraine, I think it's important to say, to call spade and spade and talk about Russia's aggression against Ukraine, because we need to focus our efforts. Why are we doing this to Russia? It's not that we are trying to inflict pain on the Russian people. We are trying to deal with a regime which is undermining our way of life, our democracy, Ukraine's democracy as well. And in this regard, just on a very personal note, I personally feel quite strongly that Russian flag is still displayed on this stage, even though Russia's place in the global soft power ranking is now under question. Perhaps some things need to be, reviewed and seen in a different light. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marina. I mentioned in my introduction that every one of us here are not only running a company, a marketing director or a marketing manager, we also return home. We take our corporate hats off and we become ourselves. And I've been asked by a number of brand guardians, yes, I have certain straitjackets at work, but what can I do as an individual? Please, 3 quick tips on what individuals can do from a communications perspective to support Ukraine. Felix.
Again, a big question, and individuals can do a lot. If I had to choose 3, they would probably be 3 that were sequential in the sense that one would have to happen before the other, and I think they're all fundamental to each one. The first one is about informing yourself. I think we all have a responsibility in a situation like this to ensure that we've gone out of our way to access the facts, insofar as those are not always easily accessible. And I'm not just talking about global media corporations who might report this with different perspectives. I'm also talking about the social media platforms you use where you've got an element of trust about the content that you're seeing. But if we've seen anything in the last fortnight and a half, it's that there has been content shared, not from this conflict, from many others, and access allowed to corporations and individuals with a different agenda that are kind of polluting what would be considered widely as the truth and the real story. So I think making that effort to separate fact from fiction is everyone's responsibility in what is an information war as much as it is happening on the ground in Eastern Europe. The second thing I would then go from there is to challenge. We've just spoken about a couple of brands now who have been pulled up in front of everyone as an example of not acting quick enough. But we can all challenge each other around our perspectives and our opinions, whether that's our friends, whether that's our family, colleagues, but also brands, and understanding that we all have a voice. So I think use your position to challenge. And then the third one from that is probably we're fortunate in this country and the majority around the world to have freedom of speech and to utilise that, because there are countries involved in this very conflict that don't have that privilege, whether that's utilising your voice online or not. We've been here at the Soft Power Summit today, and a lot of it has been very political. It's been about countries and governments, age-old institutions, still being the purveyors of soft power. But actually, soft power every year is more decentralised than it was the year before. All of us have the ability on a social media platform to go viral just as much as a brand with an established market and following has to go viral. So use your voice and access to those platforms to challenge, to speak out for what's right, to bring people together, to grow communities. So yeah, in summary, I think inform, challenge, and then use that freedom that we're fortunate enough to have in this country to speak out for what's right.
Thank you, Sophie.
I would absolutely build on that. The three things that we can do as individuals: we can use our voices, we can use our wallets, we can use our skills. The power of voices coming together, whether it is to make a sound, whether it's to share a story, whether it's just to communicate. We operate in a world now where we can do that, and there's a democratization of sharing the stories and sharing our voices and our points of view. So absolutely building on that. I think using your wallet, it sounds really, really basic, but there's so many important ways in which we can support the brands that we want to. So talking about Ukrainian brands that in businesses we can support, or choosing to support the brands that we think are making a difference. It's interesting to see the YouGov polling. 56% of Britons say that they are more likely to buy from a brand right now that refuses to do business in Russia. And although, yes, it's a TikTok war at the moment, and there are the youth that we're focusing on is important, interestingly, those YouGov figures go massively up the older you get. So 65% of 50 to 64-year-olds are taking a stand and saying we're really supporting businesses who don't do business in Russia, and those who are donating to it. So that we can support businesses, and of course we can spend our money supporting the humanitarian efforts. So many big businesses are actually supporting their employees and matching their funding, which is great. There's creative ways of doing it as well. I think you've probably all seen what Airbnb are doing. So individuals supporting individuals by basically signing up to rent Airbnb in the Ukraine and helping individual families. There are great ways of doing it. And then using our skills. So it's really interesting that the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been completely overwhelmed by offers of communication support to help combat Russian misinformation. What do you do and do well, and how can that help? Check out the website war.ukraine.ua. It's PR and communication specialists who come together quickly to help and support. Or you see all kinds of people within the communications industry supporting it. Asher, a small design agency based in Cheltenham, has done a beautiful campaign to support the Sanctuary Foundation and helping with refugees. Again, moving quickly but doing great things. So what are our skills? What can we do to help? Each of us can do something to make a difference, especially when we come together to make it happen.
Well, basically what Sophie said, actually, and Felix. I would add to it, on the sharing, that's a good point you started making, Felix. I think it's super critical that you need to take great care what you share to verify as far as you're able to. You might think, well, how can I do this? How do I know whether that photo is genuine or not? There are places you can find. The BBC's got a terrific guide. Most of the media companies do, in fact. The American media companies, more of them do as well. But the main thing you can do when you're sharing is pause before you hit that retweet button or whatever it is. Don't just blindly do it. Twitter actually has tools that ask you, would you like to read this first before you retweet something? They do that for a reason, and you need to help yourself do that too. Check before you share something, because misinformation, disinformation is a serious issue. I think as well, I was reading that YouGov survey too, by the way. That's actually quite interesting. The younger you are, the less the less likely you're going to boycott brands still in Russia. The older you are, the more. There's a generation gap there. So we need to hit up the young folks to change their attitudes here. And that is something each of us can do with people we know perhaps, but it's better actually as a more organized effort in large organizations that have influencer networks on social media. That needs to be a core focus to try and convince those people that why they should care about this. And this is not something that is going to make a difference immediately, I doubt, but we actually don't have a lot of time here. That is something quite important. And I think the other thing I would mention too, we've already touched on employees, and indeed Marina made a good point about that, the reinforcing and the mobilizing of employees. I would also add, encourage your professional association or your industry association to do something very, very crystal clear and proactive about all of this on behalf of your industry or profession. So your organization, you can do things. Get the professional associations to do that. If you're in PR in the UK, CIPR, Marketing Society, you've got the Chartered Institute of Marketing, many others who can come to the fore on that.
Great point.
So that's probably four, I think.
Very good point.
Yeah. So
Marina?
Again, because so much has been said already, I will just make 2 points. One of them, exercise direct instruments of democracy, which, thanks God, work in this country, unlike in Russia, for example. Write to your MP and ask them to do things about issues which matter to you, be it military supply to Ukraine, be it refugees issues, be it visa regime, things like that. And you would be surprised, the more letters you write, the more pressure MPs feel, do something about it, and you can chase them and ask them, what they have done about it. We can actually, our group of volunteers even produce templates of this letter. So if you feel like you don't have time to write a lengthy letter, we can provide some templates and you can just tweak it to make it more personal. Just a very practical advice. And the second one is, Ukraine is very grateful for all the support it receives, huge volumes of humanitarian supplies, military supplies, but I wouldn't do enough if I didn't mention how this military and paramilitary supplies matter. Not that volunteers can buy planes for Ukraine, but however, you can buy lots of things for what we call in Ukraine territorial defense. So these are basically civilians who go to they are like second line of defense. They are propping up Ukraine's armed forces. That's why they are doing such a good job. They are manning the checkpoints, they're helping to evacuate the civilians, they patrol the streets, they do lots of things which the army cannot do because they are engaged in warfare. So, and very often, and I know this from lots of my friends, these guys, they do not even have body armor. They need body armor, they need helmets, they need first aid kits, they need night vision goggles and things like this. And so you don't need to be, a military person to be able to buy this. And lots of Ukrainian volunteers, they do buy this stuff for them. And I can only mention one charity, which is called Save Life UA, which works specifically on this kind of supplies. And if you can help Ukrainian territorial defense, you will help Ukraine a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. We have to finish at 5:05. So I'm going to want to give the audience the opportunity to throw a question or two. So it's going to be my final question, and I'm going to have a final request as well, which is Your answer, the challenge is 15 seconds. And that is, but I'm being generous, it's 15 seconds each. We are aware that there might be brands that are concerned about the accusation of Ukraine washing, as in, oh, brands just showing a logo and saying something without substance. My view is, for brands to even just display a logo, that is something, and it's far better than nothing, as long as they're not doing business with Russia at the same time or alike. But if they were also to make contributions in kind or finance, that really gives authenticity. What's your comment on that? And just also advise what brands and individuals mustn't do, what we shouldn't be doing.
My comment on that, I suppose, links into my answer to what brands shouldn't do, which is, well, I think first of all, you don't, especially if we're talking about a smaller business, it's all about playing to your strengths. Like, not everyone is best placed to pull together the global campaign that's going to bring every stakeholder into the room to raise masses of money. In fact, focusing our efforts on 10 unified campaigns, whether that's around fundraising, provision of aid, whatever that might be, is going to be better than having to work between 300 different campaigns because everyone wants to do something. Sometimes supporting an existing effort and campaign is better in the position that you're in than trying to do too much for yourself. So if you're not the biggest brand in the world, do what you can as an individual, but choose a cause and a campaign that's authentic to your values as a business and what you stand for, and support that in any way that you can.
Thank you. Sophie?
Do something, do it fast. I think it's so easy inside an organisation to spend a lot of time having committees and talking about what the right thing to do is. Small things, big things add up, and have those conversations. We do live in a transparent world now, though, so organisations can't put a sticking plaster over things, so things will be discovered, and you do need to think it all through, but something just so that we can come together and show the Ukraine that we're...
I think the large brands need to revert to the nimbleness that the smaller brands have. Neville?
Share stories. That's what I would say you can do as an individual. And everything you've heard us talking about, be careful when you do this, but share stories.
You've got 3 more seconds.
Yeah, okay, fine.
What
not to do is don't think of your brand support as a brand message, please. This is about galvanizing people in a belief of a tragedy that's happening in this continent, in Europe. And your belief of why you're taking a stand, that is your message, not reinforcing the brand. That's going to come because you're communicating in a different way as part of this, and people pay attention to that. They turn off if you've tucked away a brand message like a marketing campaign in there. Please don't do that.
Yeah, I second that, for sure. It shouldn't be off the shelf.
Well, you're seeing examples already in America, quite a few examples of that. Yeah.
I think Helle Thorning-Schmidt, the former Prime Minister of Denmark, who was here earlier today, said in 3 words, them, not you.
Yeah.
Which is probably something up.
Marina?
I probably no longer have any specific advice. My only concern is that there could be a point when there will be the end of the news cycle and Ukraine will not be of interest. People will start forgetting. It will be dragging on and on and on, and everybody will get tired from seeing these pictures of, injured civilians, injured pregnant women, and so on. So, yes, it's a big challenge for Ukraine.
So we shouldn't stop. We've just got to continue.
Because as soon as you forget,
bang the drum of the message continually. Thank you. So, whilst anyone here's thinking up a question, I saw Vanessa Feltz in the audience. Vanessa only arrived at the smartphone ownership fraternity a few months ago, and actually only arrived at social media, I think, a few weeks ago, and already has well over 100,000 followers. Any tips on what we've been discussing in terms of how we can use social media to influence? I know you obviously can influence as a TV presenter. journalists and so forth, but from the social media perspective, your learnings in a 3-week crash course that you've had.
Here, Marcel, hello. First of all, I'd like to say I'm not doing any business with Russia on any front whatsoever. So that's the first thing. I'm here really as a human being and not a brand, and also as a friend of Marcel, and really just want to say how very privileged I am to be here, and also to say, I witnessed you conceive this idea and take it from a germ of a notion in your brain to something which has attracted all of these people, and I hope is going to make a colossal difference. And were I wearing a hat, I would most definitely take it off to you. And all I can say as an utter social media novice, which I am, 130,000 followers in 10 weeks, I'm doing something or other, I don't know what, is that I second everything everybody says about authenticity. If you do, and as you feel, if you show by your actions and by what you're communicating that it is genuine and it's not some kind of prefabricated kind of motto that you think you ought to be espousing, then that seems to me to be the key to communication. But what the hell do I know? I just work for the BBC. I know nothing. Nothing.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Ben Afedu, for being here as well. One last question I have for a member of the audience is, I see Leanne Benjamin is here. She's, until recently, the prima ballerina of the Royal Ballet, and I've just read her biography, which has just been launched. In it, I see that you've been to Russia, you've worked with so many Russians, you've danced with Nureyev. Any advice on communications with Russia, how we might be able to impact? You're there at the back, at the very, very back. Oh, I thought you were going to do it in movement, convey the message. Thanks so much. Out of the dark, it is uplifting to see the goodness. Phenomenal, the spirit and generosity of brands and people. And I love seeing competitor organizations, competitor brands coming together in times of need to transcend their petty differences and make a difference. Any question from the audience? Yep.
Hi, I was really interested in what Marina said about how UK-based businesses and brands can help support displaced Ukrainian brands and businesses in similar fields. And I was just wondering, are there any resources available to be able to do that? So is there a website, an organization, or even a hashtag that can be used to connect like-for-like businesses that want to help in that way?
I'm not aware, to be honest, of any. I'm aware of many other initiatives, but not of this one. And I don't know if it's something that should be done with the support of the government or not necessarily.
Anyone on the panel?
I know the tech industry have been bringing people together. I can't remember the website and the organisation, but they've done a great job in bringing together displaced Ukrainians and trying to support that. So it's worth checking that out. I think there's some quite interesting business support around that.
Do you have another question here?
Marina, you mentioned that people might get tired of seeing all those images and they might just start to flag. Do the members of the panel have any advice you could offer us to stop people flagging so we can keep the momentum going as this goes on?
Guys.
That's a good question. I think that Thank you for the question. How to maintain people's momentum when the story is the same old stuff all the time?
I would definitely say creativity, as in
Right.
there's so many creatives in this room, so many creatives in the industry. I think as long as one can even deliver messages that we've already been delivering, but in different fashion,
Yep.
different imagery, different voice, people tune in.
Just to add to that, I think as individuals, we can continue repeating some of the stories we have highlighted. And this is where an understanding of your social networks come into play a little bit, where you can see which messages get more attraction and interest from people. So that's something you can do, even if it's the same story, but the positive stories are the ones to amplify as opposed to the awful stories. So that's one way of doing it.
And just to piggyback off the back of that, I mean, you said it just now with the story element, but just because we stop talking about it here doesn't mean that it's not still going on.
Right.
So new stories are emerging every day, and they don't become any less real in the fact that it is happening at the time to real people. And if we do that as individuals on social media platforms, keep sharing those, keep talking about them, no one can ultimately ignore what is actually going on. Amplify them, because they're still real, even if our mainstream media aren't reporting.
One last question.
Actually, not really a question. I just wanted to mention about the tech industry. So I do a lot of work with the tech industry, and basically a lot of the developers from Kiev and Ukraine, they have set up something which is on LinkedIn. If I could maybe share, it's something called Evolve. We stand with Ukraine.
Evolve, we stand with Ukraine.
If I could send it to you, Marcel, maybe you could.
Fine.
Platform, basically, they've set something up which is a bit like a right group for Ukrainian families.
Terrific.
Coming over here, and what we're doing is looking. I'm assisting to try and get it through to government.
Okay,
What we're doing is trying to put facilities and put
we'll try and act as a platform for that. Thank you. I'd really like to close by thanking Brand Finance, by thanking you, the audience, every one of you, those that have already participated in Brand Solidarity, thank you so much. But please, all act as ambassadors for us and get involved. Thank you. And lastly, what an incredible panel. They literally, got calls days ago, and the authority and enlightenment that they've delivered us in this short time has been precious and valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel.
And just lastly, let's all rally and let's all be showing brand solidarity with the people of Ukraine. We really, and this is a message, Marina, please, to take to the institute and to all of those you're communicating with. Our hearts are with you, and we are going to work our asses off to fight the war with you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say it really means a lot to me and to to the people of my country. I really mean it. It just makes it much, much easier for them to endure what they have to go through.
Thank you very much, and thank you.
Yeah.